This is 5 cloud native ops superpowers. Yes, you can do that. And thank you so much, seriously, for joining me for the rest of this. For those of you who I don't know, I'm Dave Bartoletti. I'm Principal Analyst and VP at Forrester. I run our Cloud Playbook team. So I'm responsible putatively for cloud infrastructure platforms, primarily public, partially private, but I've been taking over responsibility for cloud development platforms for the past 5 years because they're more fun than just infrastructure platforms. It's really been about automation since the beginning of my career, right? So I joined a startup in the 90s called Tibco, that back when startups made money other ways than just raising VC capital. And we were automating market data distribution. I went to Fidelity for a while and automated fund pricing. I tried a startup, automating thousands of virtual machines when people had about 10. So I learned a lesson about timing, right? Not trying to automate things when there's not enough things to make automation worthwhile. But really, every single job I had before I gave up and became an analyst, when I had real jobs before that, it was all about helping people move faster. So it was really a fundamental march toward automation, and it has been from the beginning of my career. I always start with this slide this year because I think Eric Pearson really makes a key point. It isn't the big beating the ball anymore in the competitive race for customer experience. It's the fast beating the slow. The other thing he talks about in this speech is how Intercontinental stopped comparing their customer experience to other hotel brands, right? He compares to maybe Airbnb, but not to Hilton, to Etsy, right, to other sites, because he's trying to learn from outside his industry. Speed, you can learn speed from anywhere. The other big picture that we're seeing at Forrester is fastest digital businesses are really starting to form cloud-based ecosystems that are centered on the customer. And I can't repeat customer enough, right? If you're way on the dev side of DevOps, you're getting customer feedback regularly. When we up-level that to entire businesses, we still don't get customer feedback earlier enough in the process, right? We have spent the last 25 years building software components for each part of a traditional enterprise and pushing data one way down this cycle and including the customer pretty much at the end once we've built it. What ubiquitous cloud platforms, mobile platforms, and especially APIs are letting companies do is start chopping up their business into parts, just like we're chopping up software into parts, and reconnecting them in cloud ecosystems with the customer at the center. And there's 3 big things that lets you do. It lets you include your customer much earlier. Right? Car companies are starting to crowdsource car design, something we never thought we'd hear from car companies. Not BMW yet, but other car companies. Crowdsourcing early designs. It lets you change the boundaries of what your business is, right? Is Apple a music store, a consumer device, a bank? It's all of it, whether you think that's good or bad. They're changing the boundaries of what their business is. And it lets you include customer feedback in parts of your business where you've never done it before. So that's the big picture. The slashing and sort of reconfiguring of the business using cloud platforms is driving tremendous growth in public cloud adoption. This data just came back actually last week, so it's kind of exciting that what we forecast last year, about 49% adoption globally of public cloud platforms by companies over 100 employees, is actually 51. And if you look at this chart, you'd think, and this is adoption, right? So we're using at least one production app in a public cloud platform. It's not percentage of apps. The average enterprise, less than 10% of even the most advanced enterprises of the portfolio is running in public cloud. But as you see, before 2013, there was virtually no adoption across the world of public cloud platforms that we could even measure. There was a real long tail of experimentation before adoption started taking off. And just since 2013, we've had a 5-fold increase. So it's absolutely in hypergrowth. What changed in 2013? Security got really good. I mean, security was always good. What the public cloud platform providers got much better at doing is articulating their security to regulators and compliance officers. The price war has settled down. It's always actually good for market adoption, especially in the enterprise, when you're not reading every month about a platform getting cheaper or somebody fighting over another 5-cent reduction in storage prices. People tend to stand on the sidelines when they think something's going to get cheaper tomorrow. And the third thing that really changed is the volume of services exploded. And it was really 2013, 2014 when enterprises started changing their approach to public cloud. It wasn't just a threat to my data center or the end of my job or a cheaper place to get servers and storage. It was an innovation platform. It was a place for me to build and change, and a place for me to enter sort of that customer-focused ecosystem. Now the fun stuff. The same thing is happening now with private cloud in just the past couple of years. This is just North American companies, and this is enterprises, so over 1,000 employees. We've been writing for the past couple of years that private cloud had sort of stalled or ended in a lot of companies, right? And it had. We started at a higher adoption rate, mostly because for the past 7 or 8 years, people have called almost everything they're doing in the data center a private cloud, because that helped internal marketing. It also helps to sell a survey respondent that you're doing private cloud. But most of them were basically slightly sexy virtual machine vending machines, right? You could get some infrastructure a little bit faster than you got it before. Most of them wouldn't be recognized as a cloud by developers who were using a public cloud, so that was a problem. There's a couple of other reasons why I think private cloud really leveled off. This is the first year, starting early this year, that our data started showing a shift. And private cloud is growing again. And when we ask what people are doing with it, they're building modern cloud-native development platforms on it. So we're moving from infrastructure as a service private clouds to real PaaS-based and development platform private clouds. Or, I really like the developer-ready infrastructure line that Pivotal's been using with VMware. That's what we need our private clouds to be. So today we're talking about automation. Why do we have to worry about automation? I call this the biblical technology adoption slide, where virtualization begat cloud, and cloud begat containers, and virtualization begat converged infrastructure, and converged infrastructure begat hyper-converged infrastructure. Each one of these new technologies that's been spawned over the last decade is another set of abstractions on top of abstractions on top of abstractions that we already have. And then we rush to manage the new abstraction while we're still running the old abstraction. As you know, none of it ever goes away. So we keep trying to manage a new set of abstractions while we're still managing the old. And so the gray bar there is sort of the demand for automation is increasing incredibly. But usually we still tend to use point automation solutions to automate whatever new we bring in. We use the tool that comes with the thing we bring in, which is why vCenter is probably the most used automation tool on the planet, because it came with the stack, so we're still using it. It's not operations' fault, right, that we are sort of lagging behind in automation of all these new abstractions, right? Because ops is still traditionally measured on uptime and cost reduction, and it's hard to show an immediate cost benefit for automation, right? There's never going to be a single pane of glass. That's an analyst drinking game. We love to hear it. Every 6 months, there's a new management company that tells us this is finally the storage platform single pane of glass, or the monitoring single pane of glass that you'll never need any others. But we have to keep aiming for it, right? Even though you'll never find a single pane of glass, the more we push for extending automation platforms as strategic platforms rather than point solutions we cobble together, the better off we're going to be. It's the same with streaming media services, right? How many times have you heard about some new show that you can't wait to go home and binge for the weekend, and then you get home and find out it's on the one streaming service you don't have a subscription to? It's like, no, I'm not going to get Hulu just to watch that, right? What's they got? So some good news. Automated systems management is finally a top 3 priority for infrastructure and operations decisions makers. It's never been in the top 5 since we've been tracking for the past 5 or 6 years. It just isn't a priority of senior management, or they don't think it is. Now it is. It's in the top 3. The other The other two are moving workloads to cloud platforms, both public and private, and improving security, which of course, automation is at the heart of both of those, automated migration and automated security management. So I think there's a recognition now more than ever that automation is important. So coming from the top down, you have some air cover where we haven't had a lot of air cover from management in the past for automation because they want an immediate return. What we're also seeing, and this is some research that we just published from some of my colleagues on our operations team that have sort of been looking at companies who are reconsidering what it means to work in IT ops. And most of the sessions that I've sat in today are as much about shifting the culture of what operations means as they are about technology stacks. A hackneyed metaphor, but it really is an industrial revolution powered by automation. And what we're seeing is pretty much everything about the operations role is shifting, right? What people consider their primary job to be, from babysitting a particular set of technology to actually developing repeatable infrastructure models that operations teams can then push down from the beginning to the end of the pipeline. We're never going to stop using a CLI where it makes sense, but more and more ops teams are responsible for managing repositories of models, repositories of automation components, and treating them like software repositories, which is a shift. What are they primarily being valued on? Troubleshooting, right? Uptime, mean time to response, and keeping costs down while you're doing it. Now, I think moving forward, we're going to start rewarding operations teams much more on coding out risk before it happens. And that means consistency. Focus is moving definitely away from technology silos, being the most amazing storage platform engineer your company's ever hired. And again, much more thinking in terms of full, complete systems engineering. And the natural corollary to that is moving away from project focus to product focus. I've heard it a couple times here today as well, and I'm so glad we're talking about this. A lot of the companies we talked to saw, if it was 3 or 4 years ago, they would have said, once we got the pets versus cattle analogy, everything changed, right? Or once we stopped naming servers, everything changed. Now what we're hearing is once we started thinking product teams instead of project teams, everything is changing. And that means that people in ops need to be involved at the beginning of the process when you start gathering requirements. So they start moving more towards systems engineering and design thinking. Rather than trying to guess what developers might want after the fact, get up there in front and have them tell you what they want. Especially for day 2 operations that we generally bolt on like security. And then of course, simply the scale we're looking at, we know that groups of people can't manage thousands or tens of thousands of instances at scale. We're going to have to let the software do it for us. I actually brought notes this time because I want to remember. I want to say just a few things on each slide and let you go home. So the bad news, we're not nearly as automated as we need to be. We're not even close, right? And it's been holding us back. So this is from a focused survey we did and that we added to our big surveys. We run about 20 a year to thousands of people around the world. This one was focused primarily on DevOps professionals, people who already sort of called their job DevOps, and they thought it was that. So we expect there to be a lot more automation than we actually found. And for the most common lifecycle stages, you can see we've got full lifecycle automation for about a third are saying they're fully automated. And they're already working in DevOps. We'd expect that to be higher. The worst numbers are on the left, right? Completely manual are at least a third as well for each of the top 3. Actually, just this morning, knowledge management came up when someone said, well, certainly the one thing we can't automate is when we have to wait a week for someone to update the ServiceNow knowledge base, right? So the simple things like that are putting barriers up in front of dev teams that sometimes ops just feels like they have no control over. So only about 29% of releases, even in DevOps professionals, are fully automated. And the bigger bad news is that 45% of people tell us they have no plans to invest in automation tools next year. I think part of this is a holdover, and so we're going to look into this data next year, of how we ask the question. When we ask about IT process automation, people think about things like chef and puppet. You know, do you have enough money to invest in infrastructure as code or configuration management tools? I think what we're going to see now is more and more people are going to understand that their modern cloud development platforms are a sort of a backdoor way to get automation into the enterprise. We're investing in automation when we invest in development platforms. The second tiny bit of bad news is we're not nearly as automated as, for some reason, our executives think we are. So when we poll people and ask both DevOps pros and executives at companies how automated their processes are, executives consistently overestimate by 10 to 20 percentage points. So you guys are doing a really good job of marketing some fake news up to your executives about how automated you really are. So that's sort of an impedance mismatch a little bit. I think development teams are moving very quickly, and I think there's still an impedance mismatch with how fast ops can move. The more we can bring those together, the more these numbers will be realistic. I don't know if this is actually good news or bad news. It's kind of good news, right? I think the executives think we're on the right path. So answer to automation, enter modern cloud development platforms. We at Forrester are really getting away from IaaS and PaaS, but I continue to use the term because it's there. We call them cloud development platforms, right? Where they're made up of collections of services, infrastructure services, developer services, and application services that people combine to create things. Our customers don't call us, Forrester clients don't call us specifically with IaaS questions or PaaS questions. They call us with app modernization questions, looking at a whole range of tools to use. The good news is the PaaS market, when we ask about that, is growing faster than it has been for the past couple of years. So 22% of developers now tell us they use a PaaS regularly to build new stuff. That doesn't sound very high, right? It's only 1 in 5, but it was 10% a year and a half ago. So it's doubled in just 18 months, which is great. But it also means we have a lot of runway to go. The bad news is, what is PaaS? Right? Nobody knows and nobody can agree, right? It's a popular category, but it's a mess of a software category. Right? Everyone claims to have one. Everyone defines it anyway. If you want a single definition for platform as a service, forget it. And if you want any two vendors to agree on how many of them you should have, you should forget it. So what we tried to do is we categorized them last summer as you're going to have some specialized development platforms around mainframe, maybe your e-commerce app, maybe SaaS extension development platforms. You're going to have some unique platforms. But the general purpose PaaS category, around 12-factor apps, around mobile apps, the Foundry space is what's growing the fastest. But what's also growing is emerging platforms for big data, containers, serverless, IoT. If you want one PaaS to rule them all, it's not going to happen for a while, but I still don't think you need 5, right? We have to get to a point where companies put a stake in the ground in sort of the general purpose PaaS space and then look for extensions. And I think the summary of this show, for me, right, is pivotal. Laying a baseline and saying we're willing to expand the platform while leveraging a set of consistent services so you're not shut off from serverless, right, from functions. You're not shut off from data services. And I think this is really, it's the right way forward. The dirty little secret of automation is that it does mean giving up some control. Right? But that's not a bad thing. There's this big gulf between giving devs the keys to the kingdom to do whatever they want and sticking change control processes in front of them so you kneecap everything they try to do. And that's really where these platforms are shining, right? as automation baselines to bring teams together in a single automation platform, but not shut them off from others. That's a market or market category way of looking at PaaS. Another way of looking at it, we called it the 3 faces of PaaS, is as powerful and extensible automation and orchestration toolkits, right? Development platforms are collections of tools that go all the way through the life cycle and are sort of extending their tentacles out into what traditionally would be continuous integration tools or where most of them started, as continuous delivery tools, right? We're beyond CF push as the only thing we can do with a cloud platform now. They're also now extending into what was the purview of multi-cloud infrastructure management tools, right? Automation, security, monitoring, health, logging, compliance. Everything that we sort of bolted on afterwards, we're now merging together in these extensible platforms. And this to me is the vision of a development platform that makes the most sense. You can build this yourself. Right? You can just go off and get all the open, so you can join all the open communities. You can go out and send someone off to fight the Kubernetes Meso swarm battle yourself, you know. Or you can look for someone to start curating and packaging it for you. And depending on who you talk to, things like curation and opinionation are bad words. But as a Forrester client said to me last week, opinions are how we get stuff done. Right? We have to make some choices. And I think that's really a great way to describe the current state of curated PaaS platforms.
Can I bug you about that?
No. Wow, it's a cranky developer who's interrupting me.
That's right.
I mean, it's Richard Seroter.
Yeah,
Richard Seroter, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi.
So, I mean, I'm a developer, and it's about releasing, shipping fast.
I hear about that all the time. I know you're a developer.
Right. But, you know, operations gets in the way all the time. They configure stuff, patch stuff, whatever. Tell me no all the time.
Yep.
Do you have superpowers for me? How did ops get actually to be more useful than they are today?
See, he thinks he's already a superhero, so that's why we're just going to end.
We're just starting there.
Pardon me?
We just started. I'm the superhero. I'm a developer.
You're a superhero. So now, what kind of superpowers can we give you? So really, you only have to do those a few more minutes, so please forgive the metaphors. I like The Incredibles. I know it's
a good flick.
I know it's lame, but I was building the slide, so I got to pick it. So first superpower, super fast like Dash. Just in the past day, how many of these examples have we seen, right? How about dev productivity from 18 releases to 90 a year?
Yeah.
90 is a number that killed me. How about from 50 staff managing 3,000 servers? I did have someone say to me earlier, why did they need 50? We're better than that, right? Sounds totally like an ops response. Down to 5, who consult experts in different parts when they need it. And if you haven't read it yet or attended the session, Liberty Mutual's shoddiest viable product story is wonderful. Get it out the door in 28 days. What did Reed Hastings say? If your first product isn't lousy,
if you're not embarrassed by it,
then
it's too late.
You waited too long.
Yeah.
And on some of these slides, and you can get these later, we've got blue boxes here. These are real customer testimonials of what they've been able to do with PCF that I just can't use the customer's name. But some of you can figure it out, and this is published. But I love this one, because it's really the hardest thing for people to quantify is what revenue we missed by not doing something. So this is the question we're starting to ask now.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I'm pretty impatient. I've already rated this thing. You're at a 3 right now, but you have a chance to get it to a 5. But so you're telling me this helps me go from idea to production faster?
Yep,
Is that what
faster.
you're after?
Is that enough? Nope, it's not enough. It's durable, like Mr. Incredible, right? And this is what, again, today has really opened my eyes to a lot of what real customers are doing. Same-day bug fixes with 0 downtime, right? Patch early and patch often with Bosch. Use concourse pipelines, right? To load and test and apply patches automatically. I love the concourse stuff. Talk about embedding automation into the front of the platform.
Right.
And if Twitter can be believed, which God only knows anymore, if anything is out there, I guess I'll believe a Twitter feed if it's a Pivotal employee, right? Thrilling patching, thrilling clients with multiple patches. So it's as durable as Mr. Incredible. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, security-wise, though, you know, I get told I have to patch my own stuff. I don't even know how much of security is my job. So
well,
are you making security easier for me?
Developers always say that security is not their job.
Right.
Actually, they're starting to realize that it's everybody's job, right? So that if ops gets involved earlier on the left part of the process and explains to you how security is your job,
right,
but they're going to make it easier, would that make you happy?
Prove it.
All right. Well, flexibility. I'm going to give you a power that's like that, right? Speed is one dimension, doing what you do fast, right? What about doing multiple things at once?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I mean, how are you letting me actually ship multiple things and try things out?
Exactly.
You doing that?
So the most powerful thing that I've been hearing about today is just support for multiple different testing methods. You guys change your mind all the time. You're kind of ADD, right? You kind of want a new
Occasionally.
framework every time I talk to you. But multiple testing strategies make sense. So automate different multiple test strategies at once, self-service of both apps and data. We talked about this earlier.
Like that.
And what I love is using these same automated pipelines to automate platform installs on both public and private. So beautiful.
I like that.
Elastic, durable, fast. Anything else?
Well, I don't know. Everybody tells me it costs a lot, right? Ops yells at me because everything costs something, and I don't know. Do you have an Amex Black card? Can we just buy this and get it over with? What's the cost story?
Well, it will cost you quite a bit.
Okay.
That's sure.
Sure.
But it's super valuable. And I completely ran out of Incredibles that I thought were worthy, so I had to find something else. We published a Total Economic Impact Report at Forrester, where we tried to consolidate a lot of these customer testimonials that are getting back. Like I said, traditional ROI is really hard with an innovation platform because it's very hard for people to measure the value of flexibility. But we tried to do that in this report. And you can get a copy of it from Pivotal. But I think today, the most exciting one was what we saw in the keynote with what the US Air Force was actually able to do for $2 million. Did anything? I expected that he was saying the wrong number and that it was billion.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything in government could cost $2 million to get out the door. So I've given you 4 superpowers.
Yeah. I think if you pull that off, maybe Dev and Ops are
We'll
going to
be
be friends.
friends?
Yeah, maybe super friends.
I think we'll be super friends. And the reason I go all the way back, this certainly dates me because I love the Super Friends primarily because Scooby got a cape, and everybody else got one, and the dog was actually a superhero. But I think the real important thing here is that our survey data is really saying that lack of automation is the number 2 barrier to full DevOps. We just don't have or can't agree on the right automation platform tools. The number 1 barrier is culture. And that's why the lab experience, and culture is really hard to change with software.
Right.
So you change it with immersive experiences where everyone learns together and fails together. Thank you.
There you go. We're the Wonder Twins.
Thank you for playing. We are the Wonder Twins. I want to leave you with just one last image because I love it. Parting thought: to get to full automation, sometimes you just have to shut down the manual option and force it. This was just last week at reInvent. This is Las Vegas Airport. Las Vegas, where the escalators work and the stairs don't. Thank you. Have a great time tonight.